Well, when Sarah asked me to introduce David, I felt deeply honored, and it touched me because David is the kind of person who really is absolute to his commitments. And one of those commitments is to carry the vision of Paul Solomon and what Paul Solomon saw in his students. And for David to be a hand-picked student of David Solomon, no, I'm sorry, let me back up. To be a hand-picked student of Paul Solomon tells a lot about David as well as Paul, because like attracts like and they can recognize each other. And David has quite a few accomplishments under his biography, and successful business entrepreneur. But most important of all is his commitment to his book. He's writing in a project that involves 3 books on dreams, and a lot of this material comes from and through his association with Paul, the insights and the depths and so on. So let's bring David up, give him the greeting and welcome he deserves and the expectation of his delivery, which will leave us a little bit different than we are right now. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Robert. That was wonderful. Thank you. I'm humbled by, really, truly. I told Robert, I told him on the phone, you're a holy man. And remembering this Memorial Day holiday, it's funny for me, every time this time of year comes around, I was in the U.S. Air Force. As a B-52 gunner, my job was to nuke Russia if we went into World War III. Yeah, nice. And during the midst of my enlistment, I came to the conclusion that I could not support such an effort. The officers in my crew should have known that, because I used to bring pyramids to alert and try to change the taste of water. And they used to blindfold me and trick me, and they knew I was kind of strange. The laws behind becoming a conscientious objector in the military is that you have to change your beliefs while you're in the military. And that's what I did. When I joined the Air Force, they told me that I would have an opportunity to fly, and I'd always wanted to be an astronaut. That was my chance. But the reality was, that's like having a spiritual hypothesis about things. But the experience after getting into the military was, this is real. I used to walk up to those nuclear weapons on the B-52 and touch them. And these would kill millions of people, and there were 9 or 10 of them on board the B-52s. And they are still there today. So I decided to make that choice, become a conscientious objector, and received an honorable discharge. And my officers supported me because they knew I was honest about my beliefs. So I start that with this talk this morning because it's funny how the military has helped me even today with my current situation, where I'm able to receive VA benefits. If I were not able to receive VA benefits, I would not have been able to pay for the MRIs and the chemo and all those things, because I would not have had insurance. I know myself, I would not have gotten insurance. And if you can't get those things, your chances of living longer are diminished. told Bruce that I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make the talk today. I've been feeling dizzy a lot. And I wanted to make what I'm experiencing real for you, because we all have some sort of stuff or tragedy that we're dealing with, things going on in our lives, crap. And we wonder, why is God doing this to me? Why did he take my child? Why did he give me cancer? And so, the strange title of my talk, The Garden of Cowboy Job, I got to explain. So let me start. I'm going to take this off here. I won't move too far. I often read comments on brain cancer blog boards from caregivers who describe glioblastoma, the GBM that I have, as a horrible, awful, horrendous disease. Last November 1st, Brittany Implanter, after 18 months of suffering GBM, she took her own life because she was fearful of the suffering she would experience during the final days. In the state of Oregon, doctors allow the terminally ill to die with dignity. And so Brittany had planned her death on November 1st. Then the next day after I found out she took the poison pill, I lost it. I didn't know her at all, but I cried. I thought, she's like, I lost a team member. Somebody on my team just made the decision to cross over. And if you read those blog boards, you had 50% for what she did and 50% against it. That suicide, in all cases, is wrong. No matter what. And we even put our dogs down when they suffer. Humans, we got to let suffer, right? But there's more to the point. The question begs, if we are offered a way out of suffering, should we take the opportunity to end our lives? Think about that. Do we have the right to decide our appointed time? That's a big question. Having this type of cancer that I have that slowly kills the brain, I have sometimes thought about this. When it gets tough, will I do the same thing as Brittany? Will you? We all have to face death, but is it better to die of a heart attack or an accident that suddenly takes us away from our family with no warning, with no time to say goodbye? I sometimes despair of my daily constant struggle with GBM because there are no breaks. I wake up with it and I go, another day. When people go out and they want to do fun things and they want to go walk or play volleyball, I have to sit back. And cancer is not the only reason why people don't get to do that. Some people are paraplegic in a chair and they probably think, I'd like to do that. So we all end up waking up with our form of tragedy. My sermon this morning is not to give you sympathy or to complain. I want to relate to you what it's like on the other side of health. Jill and I just talked about that at the gathering. Until you have something, you can imagine what it's like, but you really don't know. You can guess how they might feel, but you still don't know. Our generation is quickly becoming geriatric. Some of our members were dropping off like flies or getting sick or finding ourselves in the hospital. Delenn told me this morning, this is not going to be a depressing talk, is it? I said, no. It may be a serious talk, but I'll do my best to make you laugh. My experience with GBM is mixed. On one hand, it's brought my family closer together. If this disease or something like this did strike me down, I would have most likely avoided writing my books altogether. I know this for a fact because I know myself. It's one of my big lessons. I procrastinate. And Delenn knows it, and she makes sure that I know it. It drives me crazy because if I plan to do something, when are you going to do it? Are you going to... Can you call right now? No, I don't want to call right now. Call right now. I mean, I just want to resist. I mean, I know she's right, but, I just have to fight her, Anyway. On the other hand, sometimes GBM makes me feel like I'm dying of slow torture. It's completely dominated my life, Delyn, and with the roller coaster ups and downs. Many times she gets stressed out over ordering medicine, getting blood tests, MRIs, making the 8-hour round trip to Duke University every few months. There are lots of tears and concerns. It seems endless, and sometimes I wish God would just get it over with. But I do believe it is important that I persist living as long as I can. A Christian minister, another minister on the Inspire board, which I don't think sometimes is very inspiring, sometimes it is, posed his thoughts about the importance of continuing on. As some of you may realize, I was diagnosed with a fist-sized glioblastoma 22 months ago. I was just 41 years old. Ultimately, we all make our choices in life. Choices matter. As for me, I had brain surgery, 30 radiation treatments, and a total of 142 chemo treatments. It's very similar to what I've had. No, I can't drive because I've lost my lower left peripheral vision, but I simply refuse to focus on what I can't do. It's not been an easy road, but I refuse to focus on prognosis or stats. Last I checked, I didn't see an expiry date stamped on me. I have kept a positive attitude along with my faith in God. So many things have happened in my life. If I had left and chose and given up, I would have never got to see things that would have been blessings in my life. There's a movie called Galaxy Quest. Remember that movie? Stupid movie. The captain, these guys are, they play like these, they imitate the crew of like the Star Trek Enterprise, but really it's another crew, and they're actors, but aliens actually come down and take them onto a real spaceship, and they have to get out of the acting role and play real people, flying a spaceship and fighting. And he has this crazy push to the crew. He says, never give up. Remember that? Never give up under any circumstances. And we hear that often from the dead saints, as I call it, those who die and come back. It's important that we never give up. In fact, they related a point during one person's life review. He was a wrestler, and he was wrestling on the floor at school, and he gave up. And they pointed that out to him. So you gave up. And we don't expect that of you. You have to give everything, every day, because that's what you committed to God before you were born, to never give up. But doesn't mean it's wrong to still take our life. Just keep considering that. Diagnosis of a terminal illness is a difficult thing for my family and most people to accept. There's really no too young an age to die, but we don't want to die before right time. The challenge of overcoming an imminent prognosis of death reverts back to faith in God and a request from God for the miraculous to happen. Not a begging of a miracle, but asking God, truly. And I tell him all the time, if you want me to be around, I got to stop threatening him, basically. If you want me to be around, you better heal me. You want me to finish my book, you better keep me here. I mean, I'm doing my part. It's all about trust. Now, why are the boots here? I'm going to get to that. Those are Paul Solomon's boots. I would have worn them, except my feet are too big. So you just got to pretend that I have them on. If I could, I'm not saying I'm stepping into his shoes, but these are the boots that kind of are the background for my talk this morning. Last September 29, 2014, Delyn and I were going to see Dr. Randazzo about my MRI. And we didn't know what to expect. She had the disc. We went to bed that night, and we asked God for a dream. What can we expect? And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up with a dream that said, from Delenn approached me and said, David, you're expecting unfaithful waters. And it sounded biblical, and we looked up in Scripture, and it was from Jeremiah, where Jeremiah was the prophet who was in perpetual pain with a wound incurable. Isn't that funny? My situation with my cancer. He's saying, David, I am a fountain of living waters. It was such a short dream, but it was to the point. Would you stop it? Stop pointing the bony finger of death at yourself. Trust, again, trust. You know, sometimes this trust of living our life without fear, even in the midst of a tragedy, versus, is it my appointed time to die? Because, you know, I have so many people come up to me giving me these remedies, and I listen and I catalog them. And sometimes I just want to hide. I'm doing my best, guys. You know, faith is a funny thing. If we had the faith of a mustard seed, we're supposed to be able to move mountains. Right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, faith must be a funny thing. How do we really gain that kind of faith? That's absolute. That proves us the power to be sons and daughters of God. How do I gain that measure of faith? You know, doctors run into this all the time. They do everything they can to keep a patient alive. But sometimes, just like in the movie Forrest Gump, when his mother tells Forrest, it's just my time. And I think we need to recognize when we're around the terminally ill, we need to maybe recognize maybe they are approaching their time. What is spiritual? What is an illusion? What is the lesson of our journey? And how do we really learn to trust God? When I was diagnosed with cancer in Seattle 24 months ago, next month it'll be 24 months, I thought I could handle it. You know, when someone tells you you have only a few months to live, you know, all your dreams flash in front of you, your family flashes in front of you, what have I done wrong flashes in front of you, have I forgiven, what have I done wrong? So what I did, and what Delenn and I did, was in the next 30 days, we liquidated all of our possessions. If I'm going to die, I don't need all this stuff. In many ways, I felt like Job in the Bible, who suddenly lost his health, his wealth, and his family. As Paul's source reading so beautifully stated this morning, it is written as a parable to the sons and daughters of God. When you're in the midst of pain, suffering, it's hard to get a grip on reality because you're in the middle of it. Like Job, I lost 3 friends when I left Washington. Job himself did not understand why tragedy happened to someone who had such great faith in God. Why would a good God allowing such terrible things to happen to decent, God-loving human beings? Job, in short, was asking, why me, Lord? I asked God the same thing, why? Why end my life now? I dedicated these gardens to you. Why are you taking them away from me? I dedicated everything. But now you're making me sell my Dodge truck, leave my dogs, sell my guns. This is the cowboy part. Get Delenn into guns. Her dad used to be a sheriff. She likes guns. So I lost all the money I had. So what else are you going to do to me? You're making me leave my kids. I felt I had to leave. You know, Job saw himself this way. He sees himself doomed to die, a broken, lonely, hated, and despised person. Job's hopelessness is painted in the book. My spirit is broken. My days are cut short. The grave awaits me. Here's the man of God, and he's in his pity pot. As I think a wise woman once said to me, the very first time she met me, she said, David, when are you getting off your pity pot? You know, you have all these years of spiritual teaching, and there's two things that I never really learned. How to raise my daughter, and how to handle a terminal illness. It's not like there's a book on this, right? You know, all the wise things I ever learned, I don't even know how to deal with these things, you know, until you have them. So like Job, I resigned myself that I was going to die. My grave was awaiting for me. I was not afraid, but fate appeared inevitable. You know, I walked through my garden. You know, when you have a garden and you build your own garden, you know every space, every needle. I could recall every corner of that garden. That was 5 acres. I remember the Japanese fence I built. I remember the stones I laid. I remember the wood I cut. I remember the thousands of weeds I pulled. I remember some of the things I learned from weeding. The more you weed, the more weeds seem to magically appear. Everywhere. Weeds grow faster than you think. Young weeds are easier to pull than old or mature weeds. Old weeds have deeper roots than young weeds. Young weeds are more numerous than old weeds. Weeding focuses the mind. Weeding quiets the mind. Weeding helps you organize. Weeding attracts friends who want to weed with you. And friends who weed with you don't talk while they're weeding. Right? It's true. You get that by experience. I could have never figured that out. We had to weed first. God and the universe were converging on November 12, 2013, our departure date, and there was nothing I could do to avoid it. When we sold our house on that date, it wasn't sold, it was already done and closed. The owners were coming to take over the house. They had a whole crew with them. Remember, we had 5 acres, and they had a garden crew, and they had people looking at the electrical rain gauges and how I watered the lawn and all that. So knowing that 10 o'clock appointment in the morning, I went down to the store to get my coffee and say goodbye to a girl named Chrissy, who was there at the 76 station where, I didn't go to Starbucks, I went to the 76 station to make my coffee. That's actually where I got my revelation about writing the Dead Saints Chronicles. I went along the way to getting coffee. It was my favorite trip. It was a habit I had to make. And I said goodbye to Chrissy, gave her a hug. And Chrissy has come back. Our friends of her have come back. Some of the convenience store girls have come back to this day to say hello to me. We developed this bond between us over coffee. But anyway, I was on my way back, and on my way back, I'd always had colitis my whole life, and I couldn't make it back home. I sold myself on the way back. It was bad. If you can imagine, they're all waiting at my house. I have a completely empty house, except for the furniture we sold them. And I called Lynn, and I said, Lynn, I was crying. I said, I didn't know what to do. Why is God doing this to me? What am I supposed to do? Walk into the kitchen, and I got crap all the way down to my toes. I didn't know what to do. I mean, we had everything in our luggage. We didn't have anything. So Delenn said, honey, just come into the house, go right upstairs. She took my clothes off. It was awful. It was everywhere. Got into the shower, washed myself up. She got her luggage out of the car, grabbed, thank God we had a towel and extra clothes, put them back on. And I walked downstairs like nothing had happened. At least I tried to. But I thought, God, why are you doing this? What's going on? Are you mad at me? And that's what Job said. What have I done so wrong? I remember I threw away my Comstock shirt, my gold shirt, because it was all soiled. I didn't get those back. The other thing was, not only was I was covered in crap, I was bald too. So, I didn't think I could get any more Jobish than that. Embarrassed, humbled, humiliated than that. Job writes, after the long trial, he says, I despised myself and repent in dust and ashes, when he finds out that God wanted to prove to Satan that he was a servant of God. Surely I spoke of things I did not understand, things too wonderful for me to know. I guess there were many things I still do not understand, and I do not know why this tragic path had befallen me. I told the gardeners to water my trees, divide the tulips every 2 years, fertilize the garden twice a year. And then it was time to leave. The man who bought my property was a humble servant himself. He helped us load our luggage into the trunk of the car, load the 3 bonsais in my back seat that I didn't give away or sell, and then we were ready to go. We waved goodbye and slowly drove down the gravel driveway, past the 10-ton granite stones that bordered Akio's hillside. The Akabono flowering trees, all planted in a nice, neat row, and the fall yellow and red of the Japanese maples passed us by. And then we drove out of the front of the garden. And in a blink, we turned out of Akio and drove to the end of the street and made a final turn at the end of the road. And just as we turned, a solitary bald eagle immediately circled over the car at treetop level. And Delenn and I, it was like an electric shock went through the car. I'd never seen an eagle in 8 years living there. You could hear them, but you'd never see them. And it flew right over the car. It was as if God was saying, you've done well. You're on the right path, and now you're going home. It says in Isaiah, but they that wait upon the Lord will renew their strength, and they will mount up as eagles. They will run and not be weary. They will walk and not faint. An hour before, I was in despair. An hour later, that eagle helped renew my faith. God was with us, and I knew without a doubt all was well with God and me, as I'm sure it always was. But I also knew without a doubt we were heading in the right direction. Sometimes our lives have to be shaken up, changed, and rearranged to relocate us where we're meant to be, physically, mentally, and spiritually. So if you begin your own walk through the Garden of Cowboy Job, if you can remember, and it's usually not till the very end that you can see it, that the experience is a strawberry grown by God just for you. Its taste may be bitter or it may be sweet, but that's life. Always remember, you are a servant of God, and no matter the tragedy you are going through, He will not allow darkness to pluck you out of His hand. eat the strawberry.